Right, basically we read the play now, and I just kind of want to know feedback. So, what do you all think?
That's brilliant.
I thought it's
it's really good.
It really is brilliant.
I actually can't wait to see it as a play, as a proper, up in a theatre. I think it was really cleverly written and hilarious.
And the ending was shocking.
I did not expect that ending at all.
Never.
What was it? Tessa, what was it about the way that it was written that you found amazing?
I think it's because it was really cleverly written, and I think a lot of I don't know, because he just had such a good grasp on not only how British, there's a lot of issues to do with being a British Asian of a certain generation that he just really brought out in a way that a lot of plays have kind of skimmed over, and he brought out a lot of issues and about in racism in a kind of almost a lot of ways, almost like racism which occurs within some Asian families towards white people as well.
Yeah.
And it was just I don't know, just the writer's intellect on those issues just was so kind of almost just so clever that it just kind of was kind of spot on. And sometimes you're a bit like, I'm not quite sure about that, and then he brought it back later and made you feel.
Yeah, I quite like the way he revealed the story. It wasn't just really obvious what was going, when you, soap opera style plays where you know what's going to happen and the story's really blatant. It was really nicely written the way he brought the story out bit by bit.
It's actually I think better than Hydra in that way, because Hydra is more kind of superficial, I'd say, in comparison, in terms of storylines, I think, from what I can remember.
What did you think, Graham?
I just know, picking up on what Tessa was saying before, obviously I don't have much of a connection with Asian families or whatever, and I was just thinking, basically you were sat down and they were completely misunderstanding culture, just in the same way I suppose anybody else does. And I don't know, I think that was one of the things to me, it was just kind of real in that way, because they were just as racist and just as misunderstanding, and not just racism, just everything about them. They just completely didn't understand what was going on outside their family, which is like every other family's like. But I think a lot of time people see them as the victims, and obviously they weren't the victims. They were just, I think they were just as happy as any other family in a way. I didn't see them as victims. I think they were just as happy as any other family, but it kind of showed you how really there's a connection.
I think it's,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, a big misconception about how I don't know, in Britain nowadays it's an assumption that almost if you're white you haven't really got a culture and there's nothing to understand, but if you are of any ethnicity then you have a complicated culture which is difficult to understand, and almost in a way he kind of turned it all on his head and said, look, any culture has these sort of complexities and is difficult to understand, and it's more about actually family and stuff like that as much as any sort of cultural things.
And we can reject whatever to do with our religion or blah 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 if we want to.
Yeah, if you stripped away certain things from the script that indicated who the family were and where they were from, it could be any family. Because the things like the two brothers that haven't spoken for 5 years and then they're not understanding each other, that happens in, well, I can't generalise, it happens in every family, but I'd be surprised if it
and the embarrassment about each other, brothers being embarrassed by each other, and that happens loads in families. But getting embarrassed by your parents because they're not good enough, or
definitely.
So
it's one of the underlying themes. Therefore, could be families. Relationships within families, and it's saying, I wondered if it was sort of trying to find a solution.
See, this is one of the things that I was exploring, and what I find in the play is that Nirjay just shows everything, all aspects of there's Sunil kind of pisses you off, but then you understand where he's coming from. Sudha, the guy who's written the play, that's his pseudonym.
Oh, right.
Okay. And Nirjay, it's Sunil pisses you off, but you know some things that he says you know, you understand. Same as like, so the things that she says piss you off and you think, oh fucking hell, she's a right idiot, but then things she says you don't understand. And I think what I really like about, what really I found insightful about the play is that there are no answers. You're just shown everyone's point of view, and you make your own decision and you come out. And I think when you read it, you're not even you don't have any answers as to it. You just realise the complexities of this situation. And I think that one of the dilemmas that the play really does make people aware of is the fact that what is this British Asian identity at the moment? There isn't one. No one knows what it is, and that's why it kind of seemed like a bit of a struggle to find out what you are, because not even you know what you're supposed to be are. And it is like finding that definition. Is there that definition? There isn't, because it's like a progressive, like this culture is evolutionary, and there isn't a definition that you go by. And I think that's one of the things that I thought was quite prominent within the play, and that was one of the things that I felt came out quite a bit.
And also on the other hand, it could also be saying like it's delved out all these different people's ideas, and it could go this way and you might agree this way and this could be a solution, but also it's kind of suggesting, well, maybe you shouldn't even try and explore these difficulties, and you shouldn't try, you know, because like right at the beginning they were like, oh, what have you done, you've conned us, what's the point, you shouldn't bother doing this. So that's another thing to look at, isn't it? Like, alright, agree that you don't get on and don't bother seeing each other ever again, but then is that a real answer? But it's still another option, isn't it?
I think as well, like Tessa, when we finished reading the play, she was like, I've got a big chip on my shoulder, Sunil, he's got a big chip on his shoulder and blah blah blah. I never actually interpreted it in that way, and I'm not saying that Tessa's wrong and I'm not saying that I'm right, but it is that you can just look at it in completely different ways. I think that's why it's good, because it doesn't tell you he's got a chip in his shoulder and that's how it should be, and she's just stupid and that's how that is, kind of thing.
I just felt from reading it, I was like, oh my god, this guy has got such a he's just not stopping, he's just going and going and going, and just kept coming back with more stuff and more arguments with everyone, and it's just like...
I'll tell you a bit about this script, because this is the third draft, and I read the first and second right. The first and second, in the thing that you said about Sunil having a chip on his shoulder, Nirjay's taken aspects of what he says out of it, because he sounded like a right wanker, because what it is Rishu's child, you know, the one that has the yeast infection, what that actually niggles at is that her son's actually autistic, and her and her husband hide it and say, oh, he's got a yeast infection, when actually he's got autism, but they're not facing the reality of it.
I wonder why she said about special school. Yeah.
But that's what I might, but this could be a suggestion for him, because he didn't want to keep that bit in about the autism, because he felt, because you know the bit when Liz and Rishu are in the kitchen, Rishu and do talk about, oh well, I was thinking about the MMR, it's not in the script, is it, the MMR jab bit?
No.
It's not right. Yeah, in the other script she does say, you know, did you give the second one the MMR? And Rishu says, you know, no, we had the single vaccinations. And then Liz says, well, yeah, you know, after what happened to you, no offence, we didn't really want to take the risk either. And you know, there are links between the MMR jab and autism, and her son has autism, but that isn't in this script anymore, so maybe that doesn't make sense and that needs to be in the script. And what I was kind of expressing in my kind of, when I was looking at certain sections of my report, like one of the sections is family, in that, you know, like what the culture kind of presents is that if you live by a certain set of guidelines, you will have an easy life. Like if you're Indian and you marry another Asian man, and if you do everything the culture wants you to do, you know, you're made to think as though your life's going to be simple, but life throws shit at you and things like that happen. Like Rishu does marry a wealthy Asian man who she's in love with, and they are like, do have a good background and stuff, but then, you know, her son's autistic and she still struggles. No matter how like Asian you are, you're always going to struggle anywhere, because like life's going to throw things at you that you're not going to expect.
And I don't think that came across.
No, it doesn't come across in this script, because he's amended. This is actually the fourth version, because I have the third version. I was reading that and he's changed it again. But I think things like this, they're like issues that
there was a glitch with that special school thing. That doesn't really make sense.
And I didn't feel
I thought there was
any
just
empathy
niggling
for those two, because they did seem I feel they were the two of the play that you didn't see the other side of. I don't know whether it's because you didn't see them discussing it or being normal just together. But you didn't get any of that. I don't know whether it's because of the part I was reading, but I kind of grew to quite dislike them.
Just didn't like them.
Which dislike to Rishi
Raj and Rishi.
Because I don't like
These
because
scenes, there wasn't much warmth in them.
No.
The only
as soon as
caring
they
side
came
you
in,
saw was when she was in the kitchen with Liz. And it was like just one little glimpse of that, and then later on when they were saying like, oh, should we make you a cup of tea or something, or when she was going to
But
bed.
Raj was such a
but you never got the other
sort
side.
of, annoying.
I think it makes quite a difference that they arrived without the children. I don't know, it's almost the way I picture them is that they've got real nice outfits on, they're well presented and well spoken. She's got manicured nails and all the rest. He's got a suit and tie on possibly, and they come without the kids and she's going, oh, I'm so tired, but she probably is, like a retired looking after an autistic child, but we're not aware of that it's autistic. And they kind of look like a middle class, well-to-do couple who, it's like, oh, she lives with the mother. It's not, I couldn't even picture
They don't
doing
have a worry,
housework.
do they?
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
You can
don't
forgive
relate to them at all.
Sunil for being a bit stupid, because in a way you can see, like, he's got his kids that are driving him to madness or whatever. But then them two just come in and they're a bit arsey, and you're just like, you can't be because you've got money.
So do you think that maybe those two characters need a little bit more depth?
I think they need a
think so.
scene. I think they need a scene together, or with other characters to definitely base that relationship. Who are these people? Just to get that other side, because you don't get the side of who are these people apart from that situation, because it is an odd situation.
And that she's a smelly sister.
And you kind of built that up, in that scene where they're just about to go to bed, the other couple. Like, you do kind of see the other side of them, like almost the normal side. And you could almost do the same with the others, like on their way up.
He could maybe have a car scene.
Yeah.
They're discussing it, and because he said something about, didn't I tell you in the car she was going to do something like this? So why not have like a short scene where
The only thing is that I think one of the other aspects of this is the oppressiveness of this house.
Yeah, it all has to be based
in the house. Yeah, it has to be based in the house. So, but maybe that
is
is
the bedroom scene, like Liz and Sunil have or whatever. But
they're
yeah,
not
I think the house is
somehow
like
you need
scene
to
in that
see a
house.
bit
They
more of
say
Rishu
something
and
like that,
Raj. Okay, cool.
But free tickets, thanks, Diksha.
I wonder if, we said earlier about the 66, I'm going, oh no, 65. I think maybe it is looking back, because there are quite a lot of flashbacks when you look at it.
But that would mean that Ashford is the narrator, and he only starts doing that like halfway through or something, doesn't he?
Yeah, because at the end it's
at the beginning does he say, looking
No, but
back?
you're not meant to know.
I was trying to think, like, when I was looking at it, it was saying, like, I don't know which of these memories are true and which are false right at the end. And it's like, you kind of switch then and think, oh God, he's narrated the whole play without me realising. But then at the same time, he doesn't narrate the whole play. He only narrates it from the middle, when he says, I've got this
found out
problem with my head kind of thing. And that's when it starts doing it, and it kind of, then it becomes broken up and weird, and I suppose that's why it's called it distortions or whatever, but I think that needs to be introduced right from the beginning.
So if Ashok is the narrator, that needs to be kind of seen from the beginning.
Not necessarily.
I quite...
Not from the exact beginning.
No, I don't think
I quite like the way that when he started to talk about his head, and his head going weird, and then suddenly the whole play was just like, and I think visually, once it's up on stage, it'd be a lot clearer to see. But I quite like the way,
because you see what happens
because it was like
the thing
in
is,
his head. Do you know what I mean? Like,
the way it works out the way how it's laid out though is that when you look at it from the beginning, you're not biased towards anyone's opinion. You're not looking at it through anyone's eyes. They're all separate characters saying separate things. And then halfway through, when it does assume like, flashbacks and all the rest of it, then it turns it and you can look at it through his eyes, because he's kind of disregarded. He's kind of like belittled in the beginning, as though it's not a very important character. So then to actually have him come out halfway through as the person who's having flashbacks and remembering childhood, to then see it all the way through, to perhaps he's actually doing all this just before he hangs himself, and he's looking back to a time when things possibly could have got sorted out, but that was a year ago and nothing's happened since then, and this is his solution to it.
Yeah. I was just looking back on his life all the way as he's just about to hang himself.
What did you think of the flashbacks?
Well, I was just the bit about Shockey was like, he was kind of like his dad in a way, because he always sat back and just watched everything happening. But I don't know, maybe it's for a director to pick up and make a bit more of that and to show that he's a bit like his father kind of thing. Because to me, I don't know, I was more frustrated for the dad than...
Well, I think that comes across with that scream. He couldn't get any words out, could he? All he could do was scream. That was brilliant.
And he had that complete moment of frustration, and all this stuff's happening around him, and he's just sat there, and people are talking about him and don't really care about him, and it's just like... And he obviously can't do anything about it, and then it builds up to this, like, the big speeches he has, and then eventually it's this scream when he just can't talk anymore. But then Shockey doesn't get that, and in a way it's like, woo, you know, he's just hung himself and like, oh my god, I never saw that coming. But I'm not saying give it away, just maybe, you don't sympathise with him as much, his situation, that he's stuck in this position.
I think that would come across, like you said, that's a director's thing. It would come across because if you're looking at everyone on stage and they're all having this slanging match and shouting,
and it's all bustle around,
and if he's got a light on him and he's stood there, you'd be thinking, why isn't he? And you would be drawn to him because he's not doing anything.
But they always come back to him. They always come back to Shockey. Like Sunil came back and said, what do you think? Yeah. You know, am I right? And blah blah blah. And I suppose he did that to his dad as well, but I think they all respected Shockey a bit too much.
Well, it's because he's the young. What is he? He's the youngest. Yeah. The youngest often gets lumbered with all that. What do you think? They always want confirmation from the youngest because it's the youngest. What the word they say is the word that counts, isn't it? Yeah.
Is that why he's called it Distortions? Do we think?
He's not given me any answers as to why he's called it Distortions, but I think it is.
Yeah.
Families are distorted. Values are distorted.
Part of your report, or
like, I put it in my appendix, but this is just for my personal, and his is actually. I'll probably like try and put this onto a CD or a tape or something and send it to him because he'll probably appreciate that. Probably. Don't know. But has anyone else got any burning things that they'd like to say? Anything else that's coming to mind? Alison, let's target you. What would you like to say?
I don't know. You can ask me a question if you want.
Oh no.
Answer it.
There's no nothing really nothing else I really want to talk about. But
I think it's so good, the humour in it all the way through as well. It's good that it keeps it all the way through and it's not like...
Oh, actually, that's what
I think the humour makes it more accessible.
Yeah, and it loses the humour kind of in the middle and then it comes back with the mum saying like...
Yeah, it's coming.
Taking the shit, talking the shit, but... Yeah, it's good. I think it keeps it.
Sorry, are you having a meeting?
Yeah, I'm just
You know what? You know the other thing that I was that I found, like, you know what you're saying about comparing it with Hijra, was that in Hijra I felt that Kotak, the guy who wrote that, kind of just takes the piss more out of the culture than the characters, and it is just like taking the piss out of culture, and it is a bit like just trying to get the white middle classes in, taking the piss out of the culture and making sure that you have audiences. And I know that partly that was what it was, but with this, what I find is that they don't take the piss out of the culture. The humour actually comes from the characters, and it's the characters that are funny.
But at the same time, they criticise the culture.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? From a much more analytical...
They criticise everything. They criticise each other. So it's like...
They criticise their own culture, but everybody else's as well.
Yeah, they're criticising the person, and a person is built up of a culture, isn't it? So
But I think it's also like, I suppose... It's funny. Well, we, like, none of us are Asian, but we all found it funny. Do you know what I mean? And so it's not like some Asian humour is specifically aimed at Asian people, but like this, do you know what I mean? It cuts across.
Because even though they say some like words that we don't quite understand, it's like everyone has their comedy people in their family, don't we? Like their eccentric characters and their sarcastic cousin, or someone who's the foul mouth family member, or the one that gets drunk and or whatever, so everyone can relate, or everyone from all cultures can relate to that comedy, family coming together and everything just going rah.
Oh yeah, and even not even comedy, it's actually quite awful, isn't it, sometimes.
Less stereotypical characters actually from Hydra. Do you know what I mean? Like in Hydra you had like the typical woman in her welly boots who worked in the corner shop, who was the nosy one who's going around. Do you know what I mean? Like it was a lot less stereotypical.
Yeah, I was going to say that. There's no
stereotypes
in all of it. Because you're not laughing at it because it's a stereotypical Asian culture, like an Asian family or whatever, because like that's not what I expect when I read something, but I was laughing at it just because the words were funny and the characters were
jokes
funny.
Were funny, yeah.
Definitely.
Okie dokie, people.
Definitely.
Thank you for your time.
Come to